Hi, my name is Kevin Fernandez and welcome to my channel, Gamers Genie. Today we're going to learn how to play the unique card game, Keyforge. This two-player game designed by Richard Garfield and published by Fantasy Flight Games. In an artificial world created by the Archons called the Crucible, players are playing as different factions trying to gain Amber and to forge 3 keys to unlock ultimate power to rule the universe. Will you be able to forge your 3 keys, or will your opponent be able to forge them first? Find out as we go to the table and learn how to play Keyforge. One player takes the Miss Onyx Censorus deck, and the other one takes Radiant Argus the Supreme deck. Unlike other Keyforge decks, these decks have been designed specifically to teach you the game. Each deck is led by an Archon whose name is on the deck's identity card right up here. All the cards are marked with the Archon's name, but you can't really see it because we put all of our cards in card protectors. Each player places their identity card on the table in front of them and shuffles their deck and places it next to their identity card. 3 key tokens are placed near each player deck in the unforged side up. Place all Ember tokens, damage tokens, and status cards within easy reach of both players to create a common supply. Randomly determine a player to take the first turn. This may be done by flipping a coin, but we usually like rolling a die. The first player draws 7 cards, and the other players draw 6 cards. And that completes the setup. The players are now ready to begin the game. To play a game of Keyforge, players alternate taking turns until a player wins the game by forging all 3 of their keys. While a player is taking a turn, they are the active player. During a turn, the active player performs 5 steps in order. The cost to forge a key is 6 embers. The cost to forge a key is 6 embers. During this step, if the active player has 6 or more ember in their ember pool, they must spend 6 embers to forge a key. The active player places spent ember in the common supply and flip one of their unforged keys to their forged side. No more than 1 key can be forged during this step each turn. If the active player does not have enough ember to forge a key, nothing occurs during this step. Each Keyforge deck is composed of 3 different houses, which are shown on the identity card. During this step, the active player chooses one of the houses on their identity card. After choosing a house, the active player has the options to take all cards from their archives and add them to their hand. If a player controls a card that does not belong to one of the 3 houses on their identity card, they may, if they desire, choose and activate that house during this step instead of one of the 3 houses in their deck. So, for example, if I had one of my opponent's Brobnar cards right here, I can activate that house instead of one of my 3 houses on my faction. A player cannot choose to activate the house unless it is either on their identity card or they control a card that belongs to that house. If a card instructs a player that they must activate a house other than one of the aforementioned categories, deck artifact is ignored. During this step, which most of the game is played, the active player may play, use, and/or discard from hand any number of cards that belong to the active house. Eligible cards may be played, used, and/or discarded in any order. Rules for playing, using, and discarding cards are to be talked about later in this video. There is a first turn rule. During the first player's first turn, that player may play or discard from hand only one card from their active house. So for example, we're going to take this Dust Pixie for a second. We're going to use her as an example. If I chose Untamed and I played my Dust Pixie right here, I can only use that Dust Pixie and then my turn is over. During the ready card step, the active player readies all exhausted characters. All cards in play exist in one of two states, ready or exhausted. Generally, a card must be ready for a player to use it. Using cards typically causes it to become exhausted. The ready cards step is when the active player gets to ready their cards for their following turn. During the draw step, the active player draws cards from the top of their deck until they have 6 cards in their hand. If the active player already has 6 or more cards in their hand, no cards are drawn at this time. If a player needs to draw but has no cards remaining in their deck, the player shuffles their discard pile into their deck and continues to draw. If the active player has enough ember on their identity card to forge a key, they announce "check" to their opponent so that their opponent knows they can forge a key at the beginning of their next turn. After this step, the active player's turn is over, and the other player becomes the active player and takes their turn beginning with step 1. The components here are not used for learning the game. When playing with the unique Keyforge decks, chains may be used as a handicapping mechanic and are sometimes required as an additional cost for certain card abilities. So, for example, if I played a card that said I need 2 chains, then I just place this chain tracker token right here on the number 2. For every tracker you play, the chain goes up until you can draw up to -4 cards. For every turn you spend, the chain goes down until it goes to 0, and then it just goes away. During step 3 of their turn, the active player can play any number of cards that belong to the active house. So for example, if I chose Sanctum on my house card, then I can play all 3 of these cards right here. I can also play this Cleansing Wave as well, or I could just discard it to my discard pile off screen. Many cards have Ember bonuses in the upper left corner. So for example, if I played my Dust Pixie, it would give me 2 Ember just for playing it. When a card with an Ember bonus is played, the first thing the active player does is gain that much Ember. So, like I said previously, each time a player gains Ember, for any reason, the Ember is placed in their Ember pool off camera down here. Some cards have bold playability, such as abilities resolve after the card's Ember bonus is collected, if it has any, and immediately after the card's interest play. When a creature or artifact enters play, it enters play exhausted. This means that generally a player will not be able to use a card during the same turn it is played. There are 4 types of cards that appear in decks: action cards, artifacts, upgrades, and creatures. There are different rules for how each type is played. When an action card is played, the active player resolves the action card's ability, then places the card in their discard pile. When an artifact card is played, the active player places it in their play area behind their battle line Artifacts enter play exhausted, but they remain in play from turn to turn. When an upgrade is played, the active player chooses a creature and attaches it to that creature. Placing it beneath the creature, each upgrade remains in play from turn to turn and modifies the card to which it is attached. If the card to which an upgrade attached leaves play, the upgrade is also discarded. Creatures enter play exhausted in a line known as the battle line. This line is a row of creatures in front of the player. Each time a creature enters play, they must be placed on a flank at the far left or far right of its controller's battle line. Creatures remain in play from turn to turn. If a creature leaves play, gaps in the battle line are removed by shifting the line inward. During step 3 of their turn, the active player can use any number of cards of the active house that they have in play. Creature cards can be used to reap, to initiate their action ability, or to fight. Generally, upgrade and artifact cards can only be used to initiate their action ability. Any ready creature of the active house may be used to reap. When a creature is used to reap, exhaust that card, then its controller gains 1 ember from the common supply and resolves all of the creature's reap abilities, if it has any. Any ready card of the active house may be used to initiate an action ability, if it has one. To use a card's action ability to exhaust the card and resolve the discarded effect. If a card is already exhausted, its action ability cannot be initiated. When a creature is used to fight, exhaust the card, then its controller chooses 1 creature controlled by the opponent as the target of the attack. A creature cannot fight if no enemy creature can be targeted by the attack. Each of the 2 creatures deals the amount of damage, which I will explain later, equal to its power to the other creature. All damage from a fight is dealt with simultaneously. After the fight resolves, if the attacking creature survives the fight, resolve all of the creature's fight abilities. Thus far, none of the creatures in my battle line have a fight ability. If a creature is dealt damage for any reason, place the amount of damage on the creature equal to the amount of damage dealt. If a creature is in the amount of damage on it equal to or greater than its power, right here, that creature is destroyed and placed in the owner's discard pile. If a creature has an armor value on it, that would be to the right of the card's title. That armor prevents that much incoming damage each turn. A wavy symbol indicates the creature has no armor. So my pixie had no armor. However, this card right here has armor. So if my opponent dealt 2 damage to him, it would only take 1 because its armor blocked it. You should know more about armor. When a damage is dealt to a creature on a turn when they have armor, if they deal another damage, they will take the full blow. So, for example, if my knight took 3 more damage on it, then it would be destroyed because the 1 has already been used up this turn. The first player to forge 3 keys is the winner, and the players share a friendly handshake. Now, we have a little more extra time, so I'm going to talk a little about the mat that I'm using. This is a special mat that I got from coolstuff.com. It is really cool for learning the game if you're a first-time player, because it tells you special places where to put your Archon card, your deck, your discard pile, and your archives. It has a chain tracker on here. It has a artifact space, and it has a battle line big enough to fit most of the cards you're going to play, except when you exhaust them. One of the best parts about this is it makes it even more easier to learn the game, considering everything you do on your turn is right down here in the full steps on there. If you are interested in getting this mat, I will put a link to these play mats in the description below so you can check them out. And I'll make sure to link it where you can see all of their different designs, because this is just one of the cool designs that they have on Cool Stuff. And that's all you need to know to play Keyforge. If you have any questions about this game, please put them down in the comments below. If you are enjoying this channel and like the content that we make and would like to support this channel, please consider becoming a Patreon on our Patreon page. There's a link to that in the description below. If you can't really, if you're on a budget, that's fine. All you need to do is tell people about our channel. You can also follow us on social media. We have links to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'll put those all in the description below so you can follow us on our social media accounts. Be on the lookout for our gameplay video on Keyforge. But until then, thanks for the views.